Championship match this Friday on the premiere of Friday Night SmackDown on Fox.
The following contest is scheduled for one fall. Introducing first from Boston, Massachusetts, Sasha Banks!
The boss is back.
Talk about sending a message. Sasha Banks has been trying to send a message to the entire WWE Universe, including the women's division, since she came back out onto the scene several weeks ago.
And I think she's done a pretty good job of that.
And speaking of that, for Sasha Banks, sending a message this Sunday, it'll be Becky Lynch defending her Raw Women's Championship inside the Hell in a Cell against Sasha Banks. And of course, Hell in a Cell pay-per-view event streaming live on the WWE Network.
And Vic, I predict that will be the match of the year. You heard it here first.
We welcome you to Monday Night Raw, where it's boss time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sasha Banks!
Now Sasha Banks getting set for action later on tonight. It was a match that was broken exclusively by the Wrap. Earlier today, Sasha Banks returns to action, guys, for the first time since WrestleMania, and she goes against the women she's targeted since her return, Natalya.
Sasha Banks had better shake in any sort of ring rust she might be feeling, because Natalya is fired up and at the top of her game. This would be humiliating to lose tonight for Sasha Banks after this absence.
Well, it all began 2 weeks ago. Natalya was in the ring, emotional after a loss at SummerSlam in the memory of her father. Here tonight, we'll get to that in just a moment. But it's boss time.
The following contest is a women's division match scheduled for one fall. Introducing first from Boston, Massachusetts, Sasha Banks!
Going to be a busy Survivor Series in 2 weeks for Sasha Banks and Bayley. We now know that Sasha will be the captain of the women's team SmackDown to take on Team Raw and Team NXT. But tonight, Sasha Banks takes on Nikki Cross. Why does Nikki Cross want this match tonight? Why does she want retribution? She's very upset. Let's check out the progressive match flow.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sasha Banks!
Sasha Banks let down the SmackDown women's roster and the entire SmackDown brand.
SmackDown, it's boss time.
Yes, y'all. So fresh, y'all. The following contest is a women's division match scheduled for one fall. Introducing first, accompanied by the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley, Sasha Banks!
A lot of pressure on Sasha Banks tonight, Corey. Banks has to defeat Tamina tonight. If she loses, Tamina gets a crack at Bayley in the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Cross is absolutely in jeopardy, as is potentially Bayley's SmackDown Women's Championship, but Sasha Banks doesn't feel pressure. The boss doesn't ever sweat big circumstances, high stakes like tonight. I think this is going to be a good one.
Looks like we're going to be joined on commentary by the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley. Bayley has Extreme Rules against Nikki Cross, but the controversy from last night lies with the boss, who is calling herself the Raw Women's Champion. Controversy to me.
Please welcome the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Sasha Banks, and the SmackDown Women's Champion, Bayley.
Dave Rome didn't announce her as the Raw Women's Champion because there's plenty of controversy surrounding it. We saw before the commercial break the conclusion of the match between Banks and Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, where Bayley ripped the uniform off the referee, put it on herself, and then counted the conclusion of the match.
I mean, she seemed of sound-minded body, wearing a sanctioned official's garb. I don't see why it doesn't count.
What we saw last night was a masterclass by Bayley and Sasha Banks in thievery.
And what you're seeing right now is 2 golden role models, 4 championships, and no problems.
This is absurd, Joe. Come on.
One of those championships does not belong to one of those women. It belongs to Asuka, having the Raw Women's Championship.
By the SmackDown Women's Champion, her buddy Bayley, now in her 194th day as champ.
The following contest is a Money in the Bank qualifying match, scheduled for one fall. Introducing first, accompanied by the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley, Sasha Banks.
So much to talk about in this Sasha Banks and Lacey Evans match here tonight to qualify for the Money in the Bank contract ladder match.
It just dawned on me what that picture is. That is Lacey Evans' daughter, Summer.
Lacey will not.
Nothing shocks me when it comes to the depth to which Sasha Banks will stoop, but that's a little bit much. To me, if you ask me, Banks is just looking to get her teeth knocked out.
Sasha Banks with an opportunity to qualify for her second Money in the Bank contract ladder match. It's boss time.
As for night one, it culminates with another NXT first, the first ever encounter between former NXT champion, one half of WWE Tag Team Champion of the Women's Division, Sasha Banks, and NXT Women's Champ, Io Shirai.
Accompanied by the SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley. She is one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Sasha Banks.
Sasha Banks arriving in style in a 2014 Jaguar F-Type convertible, shades of the Boss from her NXT days, and arriving in style with her dog Ryu as well.
Yeah, rapper Rick Ross says every day is a perfect day to boss up, and Sasha Banks lives by those words, Beth.
Yeah, nothing Sasha Banks does is subtle. Absolutely nothing. She's been vocal about the fact that without her, without Bayley, none of the NXT women would be enjoying the success that they are today. She'll be the first to tell you how awesome the Boss, the Standard, the Blueprint is.
Yeah, Banks putting the Boss in Boston, ready to serve up a Beantown beatdown in her first ever encounter with Shirai. Sasha.
And it's boss time. And Sasha Banks accompanied here tonight by the current SmackDown Women's Champion. Boss time on the season premiere of Friday Night SmackDown. Please welcome Sasha Banks. And you heard it, Corey. A week from Sunday, Sasha Banks and Bayley will be locked inside Hell in a Cell for the SmackDown Women's Championship.
What's troubled me through this entire issue is that finally Sasha Banks was force-fed a bitter dose of her own medicine from Bayley.
Sasha Banks has been in 2 Hell in a Cell matches in her career. Bayley has never stepped foot inside Hell in a Cell.
But there's not a superstar competing at the level of Bayley throughout the entire women's division.
I agree with you on that. The Boss and Bayley signed the contract to make their Hell in a Cell match official. Live next. And it's boss time.
I haven't heard that much excitement in your voice all year.
Christian out of it.
I still can't believe Christian is set on doing this.
Right now we are joined by the Women's Tag Team Champions. Successful after their defense last night in a triple threat match against the Iconics.
Corbin, but right now on SmackDown, it's boss time. And tonight, Friday Night SmackDown on Fox is presented by Progressive. And we kick things off with boss time.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sasha Banks and the SmackDown Women's Champion, Bayley!
Yes, y'all. So fresh, y'all.
Bayley, the SmackDown Women's Champion, has held the title for nearly 300 days, and of course here tonight with her best friend Sasha Banks. Hello again, everybody. Team champions to one half of the first ever Women's Tag Team Champions. It's boss time on SmackDown.
Please welcome Sasha Banks.
Sasha Banks, who played a very key role in Bayley retaining her SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania.
And I don't do this often, Cole, because I'm rarely wrong, but I might have been mistaken.
Time for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship.
We are on the precipice of something big. I can feel it in my guts, Cole. This is going to be a big night.
It already has been. And it's boss time on Friday Night SmackDown, from the team who wants to become SmackDown Tag Team Champions to the current Women's Tag Team Champions. And tonight here on SmackDown, it is boss time. Sasha Banks joined by the current SmackDown Women's Champion.
Cole, if you look at the land,
guess what? It's boss time.
What do you want?
And there is Sasha Banks, and Corey, what's she carrying?
I would guess that would be the contract for the Hell in a Cell match.
You know, tonight marks Bayley's 376th day as SmackDown Women's Champion. It is a record. Sasha Banks hopes to end the reign Sunday inside Hell in a Cell.
Well, Sasha Banks can hope all she wants. The fact is the contract hasn't been signed. Bayley has refused to sign it. It's not mandatory. She's a SmackDown Women's Champion. She doesn't want to sign the contract. And to be quite frank, I think Bayley's very wise to refuse tonight. Not with the mood that Sasha's been in.
Maybe she's scared.
No, I'm really enjoying Championship Monday. The WWE Women's Tag Team title's about to be defended. Sasha Banks from SmackDown. The blueprint, the standard, ready for competition.
Gentlemen, it's boss time. As the brand new SmackDown Women's Champion is set to defend her title. It is a big night for the boss.
You can see by the smile on her face, the boss is brimming with confidence. But Sasha Banks is well aware of the task at hand. Her once upon a time best friend turned nemesis, Bayley.
Sasha, of course, winning the championship back at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view event inside Hell in a Cell in one of the most physical matches we've ever witnessed.
There's no question in anyone's mind that Sasha Banks earned that SmackDown Women's Championship, but the question is, can Sasha hang on tonight?
The storied rivalry between Sasha Banks and her former best friend turned bitter rival Bayley comes to
All these spirits moving hard for no reason. Don't you wish you shoot up in my heart like a Cupid? Fuck around and leave my heart for the season. Winding up your body in the club, going